How's it going, everyone? This is Frankie Cavone, and today we are talking about the Apeman A87 4K Action Camera. This is an action camera that shoots 4K up to 60 frames per second with electronic image stabilization and has a touchscreen, all for under $100. Let's check it out. I just want to give a full disclaimer that Apeman did send me this camera with a 99% off discount code. I'm not going to just be talking about how great and amazing that this camera is, because it really does need a lot of improvements. But again, I'm just happy to be able to review it and see what different things they can do to make this camera better. First, we're going to talk about the camera's build quality. The Apeman A87 4K is a pretty cheap feeling camera, but it makes sense because it has to remain under $100. And there is 3 buttons. They have an up and down arrow button on the side of the camera, got an OK button on the top of the camera, which also works as record, and then you have a power button right on the front. But the great thing about this camera, and why it surprises me that it's still under $100, is the touchscreen, because the touchscreen is actually great, and I like it better than the GoPro Hero 7. I wouldn't say it's better than the DJI Osmo Action, but it's really responsive. I haven't had a single issue with it glitching, and it actually looks pretty similar to the GoPro's menu system. And I'm sure there was definitely some ripping off. I mean, this camera is a rip-off of a GoPro, but I mean, it's really not that bad. For the ergonomics, you pay for what you get. The battery life on this camera is just okay. You can get 45 to 60 minutes when you're shooting in 4K, and you can get just over an hour when you're shooting in HD. So nothing crazy, but the good thing is that the battery is not internal, so you can buy as many batteries as you want and you should be pretty good. Regarding the camera's video quality, this camera shoots up to 4K 60 frames per second, 4K 30 frames per second, 2.7K 30 frames per second, and a massive 120 frames per second in high definition. The video modes on the Apeman A87 4K action camera consist of video recording, loop video recording, time-lapse, and slow-mo. Just to differentiate everything, video recording, the first option, allows you to record video up to 20 seconds. I highly recommend not using that. I never record anything shorter than 20 seconds on an action camera, so that makes me have to move to the second option, loop recording. Loop recording will allow you to record unlimitedly on the Apeman A87 4K. Where this could bite you in the ass is that once you fill up your card, it will then rewrite over what you already have. So this could be a good thing if you are somebody who has an action camera in the dashboard of your car. But for me, I definitely am going to be checking the back of my camera every so often to make sure that the card is not completely full, so I'm not losing information. Something that I also really like about this camera that gives it a professional feel is that you have the option to control the light manually or in auto. After reviewing the footage, it looks just okay to me. I'd rather take high quality 1080p over this 4K 60 frames per second. It's definitely upscaled, so it's not even true 4K, and this is just something I've heard from somebody else on YouTube, which I can put in the link below. The low light in this camera is not that good. I would not ever use this camera unless you have a lighting setup in the dark, or again, just don't use it at all, because you are not going to get good results. One thing I have to stress is that you make sure to turn off the date and time in your camera settings, because that date and time will appear in the top left of your video footage. And obviously that's something that you don't want. So just make sure you do it prior to using the camera, and don't be like me. The next test that we're going to be doing with the Apeman 4K is we're going to be testing the camera's microphone and electronic image stabilization. But let's go jump into it. So here we are doing a test of the stabilization and the audio of the Apeman 4K A87 Action Camera. I'm walking around, seeing how the stability is, how this camera sounds. Please let me know your thoughts. To me, the audio doesn't sound the best on this camera. It sounds very muffled, but it's not much different than the GoPro and the DJI Osmo Action. So I'm not gonna really harp on it with this camera because again, you pay for what you get and it's under $100 and it has that image stabilization. Apeman also includes a ton of accessories to go along with the camera, including a pretty nice carrying case. Just like other action cameras, this does have a photo mode as well with multiple different options. You can use burst mode, you can take regular photos. It has a timer, so if you want to take a selfie, you can hold it and just time it so you don't have to hit the button. And also, it has a time-lapse feature with using just photos, which I much rather do my time lapses through photo mode than video mode. I would never use this for photos, especially when iPhones today are so great. And if you have the iPhone 8 or up or any of the modern Samsung Galaxies, you're gonna get better results than an action camera all day, every day. Here are just some examples that I'm showing you up on screen right now, but personally, I'll never use this photo mode again. Something nice that Apeman provided with this camera is that it does have a smartphone app. So you can control the camera through your smartphone, you can review your files through your smartphone, and I'm pretty sure you can even download your files right from your smartphone that exist on the Apeman A87 4K. The camera takes micro SD cards for memory, and make sure you get a fast one because when you're recording 4K 60 frames per second, your card might not be able to keep up with the footage. Also, it has a micro USB port and has a micro HDMI port. But something that I do have to gripe about with the micro HDMI port is that it is not a clean feed, which means that I can't use this for live streaming. The great thing about having a USB port on this camera is that you can record while charging. So if you're doing unlimited recording past the 45 to 60 minute period in 4K, you are set to go. This is a small gripe, but something else I wish that they could fix with this camera is every time I charge it, it turns on right when I plug it in. I don't like that. I don't like my cameras on while they're charging, and I have to immediately shut it off manually. It's a first world problem, but you know, at the same time, that doesn't happen with any other industry leading camera companies. So tisk tisk on Apeman 4K. Now there is obvious things that do need to be improved with this camera. One of them is the sensor. The sensor is just the #1 killer of this camera, and it is the one thing that will stop me from using this professionally in my shoots. It just, the light control on it is not the best. Now who is this camera for? I personally think this camera is for beginners, someone who is looking to get into the action camera market but doesn't want to spend the $449 on a GoPro Hero 9. This is a great option. Again, you pay for what you get, and this is an action camera that shoots 4K 60, has image stabilization, and even has a touchscreen. You really are getting a value when you buy this camera. What improvements do you think that the Apeman A87 4K needs to be able to compete with GoPro? Let us know in the comments below. Again, this is a camera with a lot of bang for its buck, under $100, and you know what? I bet in a few years, Apeman will be making cameras that are honestly triple as good as this camera is. If you have any products that you would like to see me cover, please let me know in the comments below. My name is Frankie Cavone at Mirth Films, and thank you for taking the time today to watch this video.